The next speaker will join us on Zoom. Gianluca Pirozzi, MD, PhD, is SVP Development, Regulatory and Safety for Alexion, AstraZeneca Rare Diseases. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, excellent. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
Yes, we hear you wonderful.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to this very interesting conference, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. I'm going to be discussing our efforts in rare diseases at Alexion, the rare disease business unit of AstraZeneca. And I am an area which is very dear to my heart, being a drug developer in rare disease, but also a rare father myself, my daughter being affected by a rare disease called Smith-Magenis syndrome. So I've been in the space for over 10 years following her diagnosis. Very difficult, as you heard from the previous speaker. Going to the next slide, I'm going to, and I'm not sure if you can, oh, there you go, perfect. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the efforts that we're doing at Alexion. I'll start by an overview of rare diseases. You heard a few different numbers here, but the current literature refers to over 10,000 rare diseases. As a matter of fact, there's a number of new diseases diagnosed on a daily basis because of all the efforts and the evolution of technology, especially to diagnose genetic diseases. But what's important is over 90% of the diseases have no therapeutic option as of today. So the unmet medical need remains huge, and it's a very strong and impact on the families that get the diagnosis, as you can imagine. Now, what defines a rare disease can be slightly different by geographies. Generally, the definition in the United States is a disease is affecting fewer than 200,000 people. The definition used in Europe, again, for orphan drug designation, is based on the incidence, so less than 5 people per 10,000 and prevalence. And then finally, you have in Japan a definition which is closer to 50,000 people and less to define a rare disease. Overall, taken individually, rare diseases are very rare, but at the same time, when you take them all together, the number of people globally start being quite significant. It is in fact estimated that globally over 400 million people are suffering with a rare disease, which makes the prevalence is 1 out of 10 people, which is actually quite large, as you can imagine. In addition to that, over 80% of the rare diseases are genetic in origin, which also means they very often affect children. 50% of the children, in fact, are affected with the rare disease. And finally, I would say that the time to diagnosis, it's quite high. It generally takes almost 5 years to get to a diagnosis, and very often by going through a number of specialists and multiple specialists before getting to a diagnosis, because the lack of knowledge and understanding of rare diseases in general. So it can take a very long time. Let's now give you a brief overview of what we're doing at Alexion specifically. Alexion is a subsidiary of AstraZeneca and is 100% dedicated to the discovery and development of medication for rare diseases. We've been a company Boston-based for over 30 years, focused again on rare disease and in complement biology. And today we're going beyond complement to a number of additional indications and focusing on many and multiple therapeutic areas. We're serving patients in more than 60 countries, and the ambition is to serve over 100 countries globally. We are present in Israel, and we do run both clinical studies in Israel. Of course, we have medications for Israeli patients as well. We have 5 approved medicines and 7 for different rare diseases. We won 3 pre-Galien awards over the past years, 1 for Soliris and 1 for Strensiq. And we have overall over 5,000 employees around the globe working, again, on rare diseases exclusively. Over the years, we delivered the first approved treatments for a number of indications. The general approach at Alexion is to focus on diseases with very high medical need and no available options. So our medication have been either first in class or in some situations, the only medication available for these patients. We developed the first medication for PNH, Soliris, First, for HUS, we have enzyme replacement therapy being the only available option for patients with hypophosphatasia, HPP, a rare bone condition, LAL-D. And we also have made the first innovation for the treatment of myasthenia gravis, a new medication after 60 years without having any therapeutic options. The approach that we use at Alexion is to embed the patient voice and knowledge and understanding of the disease throughout the entire clinical development program. We have developed some proprietary approaches called the STAR workshop and LEAP sections, which are basically deep dives that we do directly with patients, and most importantly, also families and caregivers, mothers, fathers of patients affected, to be able to collect insight throughout the entire clinical development period. For example, when we develop a clinical protocol, we do have patient panels to review the protocol, and we include comments and modify our approaches as well, including sometimes selection for endpoints, for example, in clinical studies. And that's an approach that's been extremely valuable, especially when it comes to novel rare diseases and new rare diseases with little known information to support clinical studies. We also use the patient feedback in terms of operationalizing our clinical studies, calculating what we call the patient coefficient, which basically means that every time we design a study protocol, we ask for patients and their family to look at the study procedures and give us feedback to be able to improve the approach that we use at the site level, to make it easier for families who very often have suffer from disabilities or profound disabilities to participate to a clinical study. They have unique needs, and we capture those needs by talking and questioning them. Our approach has been one of the first in the industry, and now many companies are following that, and even the FDA has issued a guidance about introducing the patient voice for rare diseases in clinical studies. We also leverage real-world evidence, including video, into regulatory submissions. Alexion, as a matter of fact, was the first company about 10 years ago introducing videos as evidence for submissions and approvals for medication, a practice which today is much more used and accepted by the FDA. And then finally, we've been working globally in a number of registries. We do have registries for 7 rare diseases over 15 years in over 35 countries to be able to better understand in the real world data and information on our rare diseases and the effectiveness of our drug in the real world. This slide shows overall the pipeline of Alexion, which I believe is one of the leading pipeline in the industry. As you can see, we have a very diversified pipeline with a very large number of programs. On the right-hand side, you have 2 programs under review, regulatory review, and then right after, you can see on the left the number of phase 3 projects that we have. Currently 8. We're starting a 9th program in IgA nephropathy in the month of May, and we are going to add an additional program by the end of the year for a total of 10 programs by the end of the year, which is very ambitious given the size of the company. We have 5,000 employees. The focus is very diversified, as you can see. So we're focusing on the use of complement inhibitors, especially targeting the C5 complement in a number of indications, including thrombotic microangiopathy, TMA, following hematopoietic stem cell transplant. We are looking into acute kidney injury following cardiac surgery. We continue having development in areas like NF1 for adult patients, as well as a focus on amyloidosis. And in particular, we have 2 depleters medications, one to address the AL amyloidosis, and the second one to address the ATTR amyloidosis. Each of them have a different form of amyloidosis, which can be devastating for patients as well. On the left-hand side, you can see the early development effort with a number of programs in the proof of concept stage, and of course, 4 programs now in phase 1, tested in healthy volunteers, which can be, again, deployed for a number of rare indications across multiple therapeutic areas. So overall, we're spanning in rare diseases across hematology, nephrology, bone metabolism, neurology, cardiology, as you can see. So a very diversified portfolio serving multiple patients across the globe, and hopefully providing new medications as well in the next few years. In addition to clinical stage efforts with our pipeline, we also have been investing in new areas. We cannot be a rare disease company of our size without focusing also gene therapy. So we recently have been increasing and growing our effort in that area, especially being part of AstraZeneca, a much broader company. And we've been doing that by doing a number of partnerships and acquisitions as well with a number of companies. Hence, also, I'm coming to this conference in case of any interest for anyone doing partnership with Alexion across the multiple rare diseases of the disease platform that I'm going to show you. We acquired Logic Bio, a biotech Boston-based, a couple of years ago. That was our starting point in gene editing and gene therapy. We then also in-licensed the early gene therapy portfolio from Pfizer, and we continue doing a number of deals and interaction with the other biotechs as well, like Voyager and Genedit. In the field of cell therapy, we started a collaboration with another French biotech, Selectis, and we recently acquired Gracell, a cell therapy company based in China. The majority of the efforts, both of Selectis and Gracell, are currently focusing on in oncology. So the broader AstraZeneca organization is working very closely with these two companies. However, as you know, there's more and more evidence of the potential use of CAR T cells in a number of autoimmune diseases. Therefore, we're now focusing on potentially rare autoimmune diseases that could benefit from the CAR T cell approach. And we do anticipate to start clinical studies by the end of this year or beginning next year. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you can see our efforts in rare oncology. The broader AstraZeneca organization has a very strong oncology portfolio. Since we currently are the rare disease business unit as a separate subsidiary of AstraZeneca, we are joining our effort with the oncology team in AstraZeneca to focus on some rare oncological indications to be able to further expand our portfolio, including some of these devastating diseases, which again impacts very often the children, oncological indication like sarcoma or glioblastoma, for example. And finally, I would say we're also expanding a number of capabilities and collaborations to look at the next generation research capabilities. We developed very recently some artificial intelligence enabled drug discovery technology. We're building a proprietary platform that are accelerating our drug development, refining our target selection. And these platforms comprise also an IA knowledge graph system to understand the disease mechanism, but also giving a disease fingerprint platform for matching drugs and drug targets as well. In collaboration with the AstraZeneca Center of Genomics Research, we're also using genetic data from large biobanks to understand some of the genetic changes that counteract the effect of disease predisposing mutation for discovery basically of new genes and pathways that can be used for pharmacological target to develop new medications. We also have been focusing on new molecular delivery technologies. We have some internal capabilities, either to design or screen, for example, novel AAV capsids for gene therapy with some differentiating properties, such as, for example, neutralizing antibody evading AAV capsid. And we're also exploring some non-viral delivery to support targeting different tissues. And finally, the last efforts are focused on discovery technology platforms. We are embarking on new application of small molecules for the modulation of gene expression, specifically targeting regulatory RNA, the link RNAs or mRNAs interaction, which we believe that's going to be very important for the treatment potentially also of some haploinsufficiencies. And we are collaborating also with a Japanese company called the JCR to develop a new drug delivery system that can cross the blood-brain barrier and to be able to treat a number of neurodegenerative diseases. These are all early research efforts to be able to further expand our portfolio, empowered by especially by the new artificial intelligence technologies that are currently being developed within the company and within the broader AstraZeneca organization. Okay, and with that, I will stop here after a brief overview of the many activities that we do at Alexion, being 100% dedicated to rare diseases, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, everything is understood. No question. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.